The desert wind howls outside as a priest raises you toward the burning sun like you're about to star in The Lion King, Sand Edition. The midwives bow, the crowd cheers, and someone already starts carving your name into a wall. Congratulations, you're a newborn celebrity. The only problem? You can't even hold your own head up. But don't worry, apparently you're also a god now. Welcome to ancient Egypt, where divinity is hereditary and naps are political. Before you've said your first word, you've already been blessed, anointed, and promised to rule over the Nile. No pressure, baby sun king. Your crib isn't made of wood, it's gold. Your blanket smells like incense and goat. The palace echoes with chanting priests reminding everyone that you're the chosen one. Meanwhile, your nurse is just hoping you don't pee during the ceremony again. Your parents? Oh, they're technically gods too. Or at least they act like it. Your dad spends his mornings staring dramatically at the horizon. Your mom, the queen, treats everyone like they're part of her furniture set. You, on the other hand, mostly drool and scream. But that's okay. The royal advisors will call it divine communication. By the time you're 3, you've already had more public appearances than most influencers. Every sneeze is considered an omen, every hiccup a sign from Ra. Someone once tripped while bowing to you, and now there's a new national holiday about it. Your toys? Tiny statues of gods who all look vaguely like your relatives? You start realizing something's weird when the priests keep whispering about how you must preserve the sacred bloodline. You don't know what that means yet, but spoiler, it's gonna get awkward later. Your first words aren't mama or dada, they're kneel, because that's what you've heard the most. From the moment you were born, the whole empire's been holding its breath, waiting for you to become the perfect ruler, the next golden link in an endless chain of sand, sun, and unrealistic expectations. But for now, you're just a baby god with a runny nose and a destiny heavier than your crown. By age 5, you've already learned the first lesson of royalty. You don't get to have a childhood, only public relations. Every morning, the palace wakes up to priests chanting your name while you just want a bowl of figs and 5 more minutes of sleep. The royal tutor insists it's time to study geometry, astrology, and how to stare meaningfully at the sun without blinking. Meanwhile, you can't even spell your own name in hieroglyphs. Other kids build sandcastles, you build alliances. They chase beetles, you chase approval from gods who probably stopped paying attention centuries ago. When you try to play tag with the palace guards, they kneel instead. Not fun. Meals or ceremonies. Every bite is pre-tasted by a servant in case someone wants the divine seat a bit too early. You try to feed a bit of bread to a cat, and 3 priests immediately write it down as a holy act of mercy. Congratulations, you just accidentally founded another minor cult. Then comes education, which is basically eternal detention with fancier hats. Your teacher, a bald man with the emotional range of a brick, tells you the secrets of the cosmos. You mostly wonder why papyrus tastes bad. He makes you practice hieroglyphs until your hands cramp, repeating that a pharaoh's words must be as perfect as the Nile. You nod wisely while secretly drawing ducks in the margins. You visit the temples often, where crowds bow and chant your titles. You stand there sweating under 10 pounds of gold jewelry, pretending to hear divine whispers while actually wondering when lunch is. Every sneeze gets translated into prophecy. One time you burped during a ceremony. Now the high priest insists it was Ra speaking through you. Sure, whatever keeps taxes coming in. At night, you look out over the city from your balcony. The torches flicker like tiny stars. Somewhere out there, people are laughing, living, being free, and you, the child god, are tucked into bed by 3 attendants who bow before pulling up the sheets. You're starting to realize something. Being worshipped feels suspiciously like being trapped. But hey, at least you get to ride a miniature chariot around the courtyard, until you crash into a statue of your father. Everyone gasps, then kneels again. Perfect. Even your accidents are divine. You hit 13, and everyone suddenly expects you to act like a god instead of a confused kid in eyeliner. The priests call it the Age of Awakening, but really it's the age of sweating through another 12-hour ceremony while pretending to understand metaphors about the sun. The high priest tells you, the light of Ra flows through your veins. You nod, mostly because you're too polite to say, pretty sure that's just dehydration. Your daily schedule looks like someone lost control of a to-do list. Sunrise meditation, blessing of the crops, inspection of the temple goats, 3 council meetings, and, oh right, another parade in your honor. You wave until your wrist cramps, smile until your jaw hurts, and still somehow get told you didn't radiate enough divine confidence. Whatever that means. The only people your age you ever see are servants who can't talk to you unless it's to say, yes, divine one, or please stop stepping on the sacred rugs. You start giving the palace cats names just to feel like you have friends. One's called Minister of Snacks. Then comes your first big test. The Festival of Renewal. Basically, it's an elaborate public reminder that you're still supposed to be perfect. You ride through the city while priests throw flowers and peasants chant praises. Somewhere between the 5th and 6th hour, you realize none of these people know you. They just know your titles. Son of Ra, Lord of the Two Lands. You're 14 and already have more names than personality traits. Behind the golden mask and perfect posture, you're still just a teenager who'd kill for a normal day off. But being divine means no privacy, no mistakes, and definitely no fun. The one time you trip during a ceremony, the priests spin it into a symbolic humbling before the gods. You wish they'd also explain it to your bruised knee. At night, you sneak to the roof of the palace and stare at the stars, wondering if your ancestors ever got bored too. The constellations are supposed to represent your eternal power, but to you, they just look like tiny exits from an enormous cage. You're starting to suspect that being a living god mostly means living for everyone else. Congratulations, you finally made it. The coronation drums thunder, the crowd roars, and you're officially Pharaoh now, the living god, the golden golden ruler of Upper and Lower Egypt, master of all things Nile-related. You stand there glowing in the sun, draped in gold, trying to look majestic. Inside, you're mostly wondering if the crown can stop digging into your scalp. Spoiler, it can't. The ceremony lasts 7 hours. You'd think ascending to godhood would come with a snack break, but no. You're supposed to stand perfectly still while everyone yells your new titles, half of which sound like someone just pressed random hieroglyphs together. Mighty Falcon of the Horizon, Keeper of Eternal Order. Sure, you can barely keep your sandals on straight. Then the advisors appear, like vultures in linen. Suddenly everyone wants your blessing, your opinion, your signature. You quickly learn that being Pharaoh means becoming the CEO of everything. One man begs for more grain, another for new taxes, a third insists the gods told him to build a temple shaped like a duck. You nod sagely, pretending to understand economics while mentally screaming, what even is a temple duck? Your desk is buried under scrolls. Every decision needs a seal, and every seal needs another meeting. You spend more time stamping papyrus than ruling anything. You were promised glory. Instead, you got paperwork and migraines. The high priest keeps reminding you that your will is divine. You start to realize that divine will usually means the priest decided, and now it's your problem. Even meals aren't safe. You can't eat without 20 officials taking notes like they're drafting a documentary called Pharaoh Choose Again. You just want to enjoy your figs in peace, but no. Everything you do is apparently symbolic. Sit wrong and you've offended ISIS. Use the wrong hand and now it's a national incident. The nobles come next, each one with a fake smile and a hidden agenda. They bow, flatter, and stab, metaphorically for now. Palace politics make war look simple. The generals want expansion, the priests want devotion, and the farmers just want water. You're the bridge between heaven and earth, but mostly it feels like being the rope in a cosmic tug of war. By sunset, you've learned the first rule of power. The higher your pedestal, the easier it is for people to throw things at you. Ah yes, the royal family, where love is optional but blood purity is mandatory. You're barely old enough to grow a beard and already the priests are discussing your marriage prospects like they're picking out curtains. Spoiler, your bride will probably be your cousin, or your sister, or both depending on how the scrolls get translated. Congratulations, you've just invented the most awkward family reunion in history. Your advisors call it divine lineage preservation. You call it genetic roulette. But no one asked the living God for his opinion. Apparently your heart belongs to the state, and your DNA belongs to the family. The wedding ceremony is magnificent if you ignore the deep psychological damage. Hundreds gather to watch you exchange vows that were written 2,000 years ago. The high priest chants, incense clouds fill the air, and you try not to pass out under a wig heavier than a camel. Your new wife, technically also your aunt, looks radiant, which is good because she now outranks half the court and definitely knows it. Married life is complicated. You spend your days ruling Egypt and your nights pretending your arranged marriage is a divine blessing instead of an ongoing political hostage situation. The queen demands more temples in her honor. The priests agree, mostly because she bribes them with gold. You smile politely and order construction, adding another sacred expense to your growing debt list. Family dinners feel like a hostage negotiation disguised as fine dining. Your mother talks to you like you're still 12. Your uncle whispers that the gods favor him more, and your wife corrects both of them. With the precision of someone who's memorized your weaknesses. You try to change the topic to, I don't know, irrigation maybe? But somehow it always ends with someone crying or threatening divine vengeance. Meanwhile, the royal bloodline is starting to resemble a spiral more than a tree. Babies are born, priests bless them, and everyone pretends not to notice that they all have the same nose. The court painters quietly exaggerate the differences, but even the statues are starting to look suspiciously alike. You begin to suspect that the true curse of the pharaohs isn't mummies or plagues, it's family gatherings. Every pharaoh dreams of building something that lasts forever, a monument to power, faith, and personal ego issues stacked neatly in limestone. You've decided it's time to build your pyramid. The priests call it a divine command from the gods. You call it the most expensive midlife crisis in human history. The project begins with fanfare and optimism. Tens of thousands of workers march to the desert, overseen by architects who swear they know what they're doing. You nod proudly from your golden chariot, thinking this will be your legacy. 2 months later, it's mostly just shouting, sandstorms, and people arguing about whether the base should be square or slightly more square. Your royal architect assures you it will align perfectly with Orion's belt. You pretend to understand what that means while silently wondering if Orion is the guy who keeps demanding more limestone. The laborers sing songs praising your greatness. At least that's what the priests say they're singing. You're pretty sure it's just complaints about heat and management. Every morning, you visit the site to inspire the workers. In reality, you just stand there melting in the sun, waving awkwardly while everyone pretends not to notice that the God King is sweating through his linen robe. One worker collapses, another curses your name, and the high priest immediately declares it a test of faith. Convenient, you were promised eternal glory. What you got was eternal paperwork. Quarry reports, food shortages, camel breakdowns. Apparently being divine doesn't mean you're exempt from supply chain issues. You sign scroll after scroll while your scribe mutters, Your Majesty, the workers are requesting more onions. More onions? Is that the secret to eternal life now? The years drag on. The pyramid grows, but so do your regrets. Each new stone feels heavier than the last. Not physically, but on your sanity. The architects start arguing about dimensions again. One gets mysteriously reassigned to consult the gods, and you realize that's code for buried in the sand. Finally, after decades of dust, sweat, and divine micromanagement, the pyramid stands complete. The priests celebrate your eternal victory over time, while you celebrate surviving without collapsing first. You gaze upon your monument, the symbol of immortality, and realize something profound. It's basically the world's fanciest gravestone. But hey, at least it's symmetrical. You thought conquering deserts was hard? Try conquering paperwork. Turns out ruling an empire is just drowning in scrolls while pretending you're in charge. Every morning, servants drop another pile of papyrus labeled urgent. You could build another pyramid with all this bureaucracy. Taxes? A nightmare. Farmers blame the floods, merchants blame the priests, and the priests blame the gods. Everyone's broke except the temple accountants. Suspiciously chubby for holy men. Your vizier suggests another festival, divine one. Of course. Why fix the problem when you can dance around it in gold paint? Then come the petitions, justice, forgiveness, new goats. You want to help, but the high priest insists mortal affairs are beneath you. Right, unless it's about building another statue of yourself. Meanwhile, nobles forget to pay taxes. Governors declare themselves kings, and gossip spreads faster than the Nile. Pharaoh sneezed. Is he cursed? One scroll headline says. Another claims your wife's cat is your rival's reincarnation. You'd laugh if half the court didn't believe it. Your council meetings don't help. The generals want war, the priests want donations, and your accountant wants a nap. By sunset, you realize the real war isn't on the battlefield. It's in your inbox. You used to rise with the dawn, radiant, unstoppable. Now you rise with a groan and a prayer your knees don't sound like pottery. The priests still call you the embodiment of Ra, but Ra could really use a day off. Your reflection no longer looks divine. The headdress feels heavier, the wrinkles deeper. You've traded battle cries for back pain. Healers offer miracle oils that smell like donkey and regret. The young nobles bow slower every day. You could punish them, but honestly, who has the energy? At night, you walk the garden, tracing the stones carved with your glory. You remember the boy who once dreamed of freedom under these same stars. Turns out eternity feels a lot like exhaustion. One morning, they find you seated in the sunrise, sword across your knees, peaceful. For once, no ceremonies, no orders, no expectations. Centuries pass. The desert swallows kingdoms, but your pyramid still cuts through the horizon. Sharp, silent, a little smug. Tourists of the future will stare and whisper, how did they build this? They won't know your name, but they'll feel your exhaustion. Because no matter how divine you claim to be, sand wins in the end. It buries everything. Glory, failure, ambition, until only the shape remains. But if someone thousands of years later still stands before your tomb and wonders who you were, maybe that's all the afterlife you ever needed.